Alright, another quick update for this month. Because you guessed it, that darn Zelda game came out. And I remember talking a little bit about it last month, whenever that was, and kind of being worried that it'd be more of the same. But also, I think a little bit excited because it was different, more about building things. And I guess I'm happy to say I really like Tears of the Kingdom. I think it is leaps and bounds better than Breath of the Wild in a lot of ways. Mainly exploration felt more rewarding, but also I played it differently. Like, I didn't enjoy the combat in the first game, in Breath of the Wild. So I really didn't participate in the combat in Tears of the Kingdom unless I had to. And that was a lot more fun for me. I want to do the shrines. I want to explore a bit. I don't want to over-explore like I did the first 40 hours of Breath of the Wild because there's nothing there to find. And Tears of the Kingdom still has the same problem of, oh, there's an enemy encampment there. Well, what's in that encampment? A treasure chest? Okay, I don't need that. Like, I don't need whatever's in there. Is there a shrine nearby? Okay, I actually might need that. And I think that is a big negative when you can look at when you can look at the rewards for participating in the gameplay and they're meaningless to me. And that's just maybe how I play these games, but there's no reason to fight random bokoblins and moblins and sloblins and horoblins and Steve. There's no reason to fight any of these people because I'm just going to break weapons and then, okay, I'll get some weapons from them. So that kind of evens out. But it ends up being a 5-10 minute weapon exchange and then 20 rupees. I don't know. I still am not sure what rupees are really for, besides a couple pieces of armor to like make it to where you can stay in the cool and stay in the heat and all that stuff. So I don't know. I bought some of those. I still have thousands of rupees. I'm not sure. Like, you just go to a couple caves and get ore, and then you have the money. So the economy, I think, is better, but it's still a little bit of a mess. But it really is the abilities and the shrines and making contraptions and figuring out how to get little Koroks around the world that is a lot of fun. And I did have a blast. I am now done with the game, thank God. Like 120 something hours, all the shrines. I think I have, I don't know how many bubble whatevers I have, but I think it's like 50 or 60 extra than what the dude needs after you've gone through his little chain of events. And I liked a lot of the story. I think the story was so much better. At least the cutscenes and everything is a lot more interesting than I remember Breath of the Wild being. It's a really good game. I'm wrestling with it of like, is this the best game of the year? I think probably, but I think in addition to everything I've said, the game is just too big. Like, Breath of the Wild's too big, Tears of the Kingdom's way too big, and I can't help but feel that if this was a 60-hour game, if I had done all the shrines and all the story content and a good amount of side quests in 60 hours, I would think the game's better. I look at Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, even Elden Ring, which I do think is better than Tears of the Kingdom, but I look at all three of those games and I go, I don't really want to play you again. I don't really want to participate in this. It's too much. And I think that's a big weakness for me. I'm sure people will be like, no, I want to do this. I want to be in this world forever. And I'm like, that's great. You stay in that world forever. I'm going to go to other worlds because I'm done. And it's one of those things that the more you play that game, the more I feel like, okay, don't need to do that. Don't need to do this. Let me run over here. Let me run over there. It's not worth it to do this. Don't do this. Don't do that. And it's just, you're like min-maxing your experience in a way that is interesting, but it starts to become like, why even have all this stuff in here? If I'm just running past all this crap because there's no reason to do it. That's the example I always give, like, oh, there's a cool treasure chest on top of that mountain. I wonder what, oh, nothing useful. Like, every single treasure chest is that. And, I did all the shrines, right? In Tears of the Kingdom. And I got all the optional chests in all the shrines. Was there anything of value in any of those treasure chests? Not really. In fact, most of the time it was like, you're already carrying too many shields. Throw one on the floor. All right. Wow. You know what I mean? Like, I think it loses the mystery. It's the other tired example I always give, but Ocarina of Time, when you go into the Lost Woods and you see the little target hanging off a tree and you wonder, what happens if I shoot that? And that triggers a mini game, and you do the mini game and you get something. Like, you get a bigger seed satchel for the slingshot. That's really cool. That came out of nowhere. I didn't expect that, but I just interacted with the world in a way. But because the game is so big, you can't ensure the player is going to see any of this stuff. So all these cool emergent gameplay moments, while being cool, have no bearing on player growth. And I think that's the big problem for me. Like, oh, this is a really cool area. I'm going to explore it because I find it interesting looking, but I know there's nothing here. Like, I know for a fact that there is nothing in the overworld that is going to improve my hearts, my stamina, my weapons, like my anything. Nothing in the world is going to do that. And as soon as you come to that conclusion, which I did in Breath of the Wild, it really destroys it. It's like, why would I bother? Oh, there's a thing over there? Was it a shrine? No, okay, don't care. And that sucks. At least I think in Elden Ring, the combat is so good, and I want to see what the next crazy boss is, and I enjoy figuring out its world. It has that going for it, where Tears of the Kingdom, like, dude, this combat's not very good. Overall, I think it just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know what 10 defense means in terms of hearts, all right? Like, I don't know what that means. It's not fun to get one shot by random dudes. Or even like, oh, I got hit for 10 hearts. That sucks. And now I'm ragdolling down a hill. Like, this combat is fine. And I think the saving grace for the combat in Tears of the Kingdom is there's just so many party members you end up running around with that it's comical. And I enjoy the kind of slapsticky stupidness of it. But the bosses are really good. The dungeons are really cool. But as a basis, like, the combat, I don't think has been good since Twilight Princess in a Zelda game. And Skyward Sword was fine some of the time. Like, it was passable. It was the motion controls were the problem, not the combat. But I think back to Twilight Princess combat and Wind Waker combat, like, I would rather do this. And I think, this game has 40 max hearts, which is crazy. That's too many hearts. And I just feel like they looked at design problems and said, oh, you can pick up all these things, you can make all these meals. Well, that means if you can just heal whenever you want with all these items that are everywhere, that means we gotta make the game harder. Like, the enemies have to hit harder. I'm like, I guess, but I don't want to fight anything. Like, you spend the first half of this game just accumulating hearts so you don't get absolutely destroyed by a random man who threw a rock at you from off screen, like that. I don't know. I don't really buy that. Anyway, this is totally relevant to the game I'm working on. What did all this have to do with this game? Well, it meant I didn't really work on it that much. I did work on it a little bit. I tried to poke in every once in a while, but I just wanted to finish Zelda. And, for all my complaints, I was fairly addicted to it. Is this book on the floor? Yeah, it's on the floor. Fairly addicted to it. I really enjoyed playing it, but by the time I got towards the end, there's 152 shrines. By the time I was like at 130, like, let's wrap this up. Like, this game needs to wrap it up. And I wonder if I had beelined the story more, which I did end up accidentally doing out of order. Like, I got the Master Sword before I did 2 dungeons and had the Master Sword. That was the next main story thing I did. 40 hours later. I wonder if I would have enjoyed it more. Like, I'm just going back into this world to collect more stuff, but it's also one of those things with me, if I beat a game, I'm kind of done. I want to get everything, beat the game, do cleanup, and then bounce. I don't want to beat Tears of the Kingdom and then it's like, okay, there's 70 more shrines to do. It's like, bro, why? Ganon's dead. Spoilers, I killed Ganon. Dead. And that final sequence was pretty cool. I had some kind of bugs and glitches with it. It didn't feel, oddly enough, that final boss fight, the final form specifically, was like one of the least polished parts of the game for me. Despite being like one of the cooler moments, they really went for it. Like, this is cool. And then I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I fell really weird and I bounced off things. Like, this is not working right. Like, it just, you tried to do a Shadow of the Colossus thing, not even with this fight, but just in other fights too. And that's a 15-year-old game, and you barely did as good as it did, and I would argue worse. And I'm not the biggest Shadow of the Colossus fan, but it did scale really well. And Tears of the Kingdom tries. Anyway, the puzzles are great. I loved making contraptions. I loved doing the shrines. Like, the first 70, 80 shrines was so fun, and exploring and finding them. Really had a great time. But it's one of those things I just can't. Well, there's two things. One, how can you say Breath of the Wild is one of the greatest games ever made, and then Tears of the Kingdom is so much better? Like, there's no reason to play Breath of the Wild except to see how much different it is and how much worse it is, in my opinion, than Tears of the Kingdom. But two, I don't think this game is as good. I think it's like overwhelming. It's one of those things that just consumes you. But is that good? It's like saying cocaine is good because you're super addicted to it. It's like, well, that's not really a good thing to say about cocaine, right? That doesn't mean cocaine good. That makes it addictive or addicting. I always forget which one it is. Someone will be mad. No one will be mad. Anyway, worked on the game a little bit. I'm almost done with day 4. Day 5 is the day where you start day 5 and you realize you're playing as someone else, and that's like the big change moment. The good news is I'm going to be working on the game a lot more now that I'm done with Zelda. I have Diablo 4, and I am a big, like, this is the perfect storm year for me. My favorite game of all time, or my like, in my top 5 is Diablo 2, some Zelda game, probably Wind Waker, and Resident Evil 4. And we got a new Zelda, we got a new Diablo, and a remake of my favorite game of all time. Like, this year is stacked for me in terms of that. But we got Final Fantasy and Starfield, and I'll play Spider-Man, but I'm not going to be like, I'm not in love with Spider-Man, the game. So that's really it for the rest of the year. And that's great. Now I can work on this. No more excuses, right? How many months has it been? Like 75 months of excuses. I think it's been a year of me making these videos, and I've enjoyed making these videos and talking to no one, just getting thoughts out and talking about making the game and doing all these things in a more open way. I think that's something game development needs, and if I can call this game development, sure, let's call it that, because it is, but it's basic. Comparatively to a lot of stuff. I guess the only thing I really did is I finished testing the switch from day 3 to day 4, so day 3 to day 4, based on who you talked to on day 3, that affects day 4. There's subtle other little changes, which I think are implemented, not for her though, but for her, there's subtle things that change. So it's like I've talked about ad nauseum at this point. It's about the little changes that are going on, and you kind of meant to be confused as to like, why is this different, or was this always this way? And then with the day 5 floop switch, that's going to trip you up even more. And there's another little change up at the end of day 7. Yeah, at the end of day 7. Yeah. That's also meant to do that. And day 5, 6, 7, specifically day 6, is shorter. Like, these days, it's all about the intro. This middle portion, 5, 6, 7, is shorter, but still important, has some elements that are going to be still tripping you up and meant to confuse the player and keep them like, what exactly is going on? And once you get to day 7, that is the day that you'll know, like, oh, this is what's going on. And then it's just kind of unraveling a little bit more of the mystery and getting to day 10, which is empty, so let's not click on that. Let's go to the forest. Look how foresty it is. Getting to day 10, the finale. Like, that is the whole finale of the game, day 10. That's a big set piece thing. But that's it. I think at this point, I'm probably halfway through the game, even though it's, you know, finishing day 4. There's a lot of preamble, specifically with, you know, day 1 and 2, and then day 3. Day 4 is a much smaller day. But yeah, that's it. That's the plan. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Jesus God. We're further along next month. I'm recording it then. You can see that. I would like to get done in the month time, be done with 5, 6, 7 maybe. I think that's reasonable. I have a wedding, so I'll be out of town for a week, like 9 days, 8 days, at the end of June. But, oh, I was mentioning Diablo. Really like Diablo 4. It's phenomenal. I think this is the best Diablo's been in 20 years. But it's not a thing like, oh man, I gotta play more Diablo. Like, it's really good, and when I sit down to play it, I don't want to stop playing it. But if I'm not playing it, it's fine. I can live. I can live without it. There's something insatiable about Zelda. As I mean, Ocarina of Time was the game that made me want to play games as more than just it's a thing I could do in an afternoon, right? It really captured my imagination. So the Zelda series will always have a place in my heart. It's just unfortunate that now it's a giant, bloated open world that I don't know, but perhaps the next time I play one of these games, I'll try and mainline the plot more and see if I like that. Like, see if finishing the plot early and then dinking around in the world is more relevant. Anyway, this is all rambling to say I didn't get anything done. I got barely anything done. Blame Zelda. It's her fault. She freaking got lost again in the sewers or wherever the hell she got lost. And I had to go rescue her, and it took forever, and there were also dragons, and there was, like, sky things going on, too. It was a whole lot. It was a whole mess. It was a whole mess. Let's see where the new game takes us. Let's just poke around. Oh, I was testing this. We don't need this. You don't need to see this. Don't look at it. Stop looking at it. Okay. That's it. Merry Christmas. It's hot. Enjoy the hot weather.